South Africa's population has grown to over 62 million people. That's up from 51.8 million in 2011. This was one of the key findings and the results of the 2022 census that was released this afternoon. Results also showing an increase in citizens who receive basic services. And eNCA reporter Moloko Moloto attended the handover of the report at the Union Buildings this afternoon and joins us now. So, Moloko, an interesting release of data, so important for formulating policy and understanding where government needs to direct its money and its attention. Just talk to us about the big take-homes from the census release.
Good evening, Sally Badet. You are very correct. It is very important that those who are responsible for formulating policy and those responsible for allocating budget for services have an idea of the number of people they would be catering. This is the fourth census to happen in our country since the dawn of democracy. And we were told today that it was, of course, it happened at the time of in 2022, and at that time there were some disturbances here and there. COVID also disturbed the enumeration process, but also the floods in KZN and all that. Ultimately, they succeeded in ensuring that they do this statistics. Of course, it's the numbers, a lot of numbers. Importantly, though, is that South Africa's population in 2022 has increased to 62 million. And that's an increase of about 10.3 million. People who were added into our population, which marks a 19.8% increase. And if you compare the 62 million population to the one that was last done in 2011, the population at that time was at 51.8 million, and the one before that, which was in 2001, the population was at about 44.8 million, and in 1996 there were 40.6 million South Africans. So this is an indication that more and more South Africans are increasing. But let's break it down in terms of the demographics. 50.5 million people in this country as of 2022 are black South Africans, which is an 81.4%. And following them is about 5.1 million colored South Africans at 8.1%, and 4.5 million white South Africans at 7.3%, and 1.7 million Indians or Asians at 0.2%. And one thing that was highlighted as interesting by Statistician General Sally was that there has been a steady decline in terms of the number of white South Africans. He says that in the previous census of 2011, they were at about 9%, and they have gone down to 7.3%. He really did not attribute this to anything, but during a closed session when the officials from Statistics South Africa were briefing us, of course, they did not necessarily give us the definitive reasons as to why the number of white South Africans was declining, but they mentioned possibility that the fertility rate among white South Africans could possibly be declining, but also that it could be that white South Africans are leaving South Africa. It would be interesting if we were to get the comment from Statistician General and also from government there. But let's look at the provinces, Sally. The number of people in South Africa are found in the province of Gauteng. 15.1 million people are staying in Gauteng, and that marked an increase from 12 million in 2011. In second position is KwaZulu-Natal, that has increased its population from 12 million to 12.4 million, and the Western Cape has also seen a phenomenal increase from to 7.4 million, taking the third position. And if you look at these provinces, particularly Gauteng and the Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal to a large province. These are urbanized provinces, which could tell you that possibly people are moving from the rural provinces. If you had statistician general is saying the majority of people who are moving to Gauteng come from Limpopo province, which is predominantly rural, followed by KwaZulu-Natal. Lastly and interestingly is that of the 62 million people who are counted here in South Africa, about 2.4 million of those are immigrants, Sally, people who came from several countries. The top 5 countries that are sending 85% of foreign nationals, whether illegal or documented, happen to be Zimbabwe, top, and Mozambique, Lesotho, Malawi, and the United Kingdom.
It's really, really
interesting. But let's listen to Risenga Maluleke there.
Mr. President, Minister, and members of the public, I don't want us to be caught up into the disruptions of load shedding. It's what members of the public have told us about the main source of energy for lighting. Whether it's there or it's disrupted or not, this is what they told us. So let us look at 1996. It was just some pockets that were yellow in the Western Cape. There's a place called Mkanyakude in KwaZulu-Natal. When you are at night, there's this tree that actually glows amber or yellow from far. So Mkanyakude was only in the Western Cape. In 2001, the Western Cape was universal. And in 2011, we could see the whole country was making it. As of 2022, almost the whole country is sitting between 80 and 100%. And indeed, only one municipality, eMadlangeni, fell below 80%. So, Mr. President, it's not my space to say it, but if we could solve the load shedding challenge, the people are already ready to switch on their lights at any given moment because the infrastructure is there.
All right, so that's really, really interesting, Moloko. You mentioned just before that clip, and I wanted to ask you a quick follow-up, 2.4 million people of the 62 million in South Africa are immigrants. This is an interesting one because we've seen so many questions around how many immigrants actually are in South Africa. Do you happen to know if that's a substantial increase compared to the 2011 census?
Oh, yes, it was certainly an increase. I'm just looking for the number here, and I cannot locate it, but I can say it with authority that that number has certainly gone up to 2.4 million. But what of interest as well is the fact that you wonder, therefore, as to how the Statistics South Africa has managed really to account for each and every immigrant in South Africa. I suppose with regard to those who are here legally, it might be a doable task, but really those who are here who may not even want to be identified by authorities, that's really been one of the questions that we really wanted to know about. And we heard there that Statistics South Africa is saying, look, it's really, we don't even ask them whether they are in the country legally or illegally, because our duty really is not to even say if you are illegal here, go to your country or sort out this. We just want to know where people were born and when did they come into South Africa.
All right. And just finally, let's talk about...
The data contained in a census is one of the most crucial planning, monitoring and evaluation tools for government, but not only for government at all levels, national, provincial and local, but it is also important for other role players as well. It informs the planning, the budgeting and policy making work of government at the most fundamental level. Now, as this information has come through, it is going to help us inform how the budget should be structured and how the resources that we have as a nation should be distributed and how they should be allocated. We have long said that one of our priorities in building a capable, ethical, developmental state is to ensure that policy making is evidence-driven. Policy making that is not informed by accurate data can result in inefficiency in the allocation of resources, underestimation with regard to the needs of our citizens, poorly planned programs, and poor financial allocation and management.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And of course, those are the broad strokes. But I know in the coming days, we're going to get to the details, some of which is completely unique and very, very interesting indeed. But in terms of broad strokes, the important point that is being made really is that Gauteng has the most people of any province, and it's the smallest province, that we have an increasingly young population that needs work. And as the President's saying, we need to make sure that resources are properly allocated according to the needs behind all those numbers. Moloko Moloto, thank you so much for telling us about the Census 2022 results. Now, still to